This program is brought to you from the Margaret Farrow Studio.
This week on Rewind, your week in review. That's a wrap. The 2022 primary election comes to a close in Wisconsin. We have the biggest headlines from Tuesday's results. Plus, could the GOP-launched election investigation led by former Justice Gableman be nearing an end? What Wisconsin's top Republican has to say about it. And the state is one step closer to closing the troubled Lincoln Hills Youth Prison. All this and more on Rewind, your week in review for August 12th. Hi, I'm Emilee Fannon.
And I'm J.R. Ross.
JR, we get to break down the midterm elections. We have a lot to cover. Of course, we're going to start with the top of the ticket, the governor's race. We now know, of course, who Governor Tony Evers is going to face off this fall, and that is Tim Michels, who came out on top. Now, he won every region. If you look at the 6 regions in Wisconsin, every region in Wisconsin, he was able to do so without securing all of the WOW counties. He only won one of them, which was Washington. We'll get into kind of the weeds about this, but basically you could see the voting percentages on your screen. And of course, Michels, what I noticed right away during his victory speech, I was there, he kind of pivot from the election integrity messaging to more jobs in the economy, which I think is an effort for him to attract a little bit more, swing voters per se. And then Governor Tony Evers was right out on the campaign trail the next day, bashing his opponent and tying him to Donald Trump, who, of course, backed Michels. Let's first just take a listen from both of them, and then we'll talk more about this race.
I'd like to thank President Trump for his support, for his endorsement. He knows that we need to have new leadership in Madison, and he sees a lot of similarities. He didn't have to run for president. I don't have to run for governor. He wanted to drain the swamp. We found out it's a really big swamp, and I know that Madison needs firm executive leadership, and that's what I'm going to do as governor. And I'll tell you what, Tony Evers, he's failed the people of Wisconsin. From COVID to Kenosha, he's been a weak leader. And we are going to make him an essential worker come November.
The idea that he might try to become, he being Michels, a moderate Republican, is just beyond belief now. I mean, he has taken the lead from Trump, and so it's an issue, but it's Michels who's running this race. If Michels lets him be his partner, day after day, that's his problem, not mine. We are going to be focusing on what the people of Wisconsin care about.
Tim Michels was able to not only win, he won big. A lot of people before this race, GOP strategists, the polls that were coming in the final weeks had him and Clayfish neck and neck, but it didn't seem that was the case as the results kind of came trickling in throughout the night. The race was called around 10:30. And, a lot of people are saying, how did Tim do it? I think that's a question for you, JR, and maybe it's the Trump factor. And, of course, he had a lot of his own money that he could invest in here.
$12 million. So the 2018 Senate primary between Leah Vukmir and Kevin Nicholson was kind of the roadmap for Tuesday. Leah Vukmir only won, I think, 15 counties in Wisconsin 4 years ago, but she won voter-rich southeastern Wisconsin, especially the WOW counties. It showed that you could run up the score in that area of the state and have a buffer against losing basic rest of Wisconsin. Clayfish focused in the suburbs, but didn't underperform the suburbs. She did well, oddly enough, in Marathon County and Brown County. If you had told me on Monday that Clayfish would win Marathon County, which is heart of Trump territory, and Brown County, Dane County by like 7 or 8 points, and then lose by 5, I'd have thought, how'd that happen? The answer is Tim Michels did better than expected in the WOW counties. He won Washington County, I believe, not by an insignificant margin, I like 7 or 8 points, 9 points.
9 points.
It showed you that there's been a realignment in Republican politics. So go back to 10, sorry. Scott Walker was the establishment candidate, and Mark Newman was the upstart challenger in that primary. Look at Walker's performance in 2010 in Waukesha County. Look at Ted Cruz versus Donald Trump in Waukesha County in 2016. Look at Vukmir and Nicholson, and then Clayfish and Michels. The establishment candidate has been going down like this in Waukesha County over the last dozen years. Why is that? Donald Trump. It's been a realignment. It's become the party of Trump, and that's driven a lot of things. Now, I don't know if Trump delivered the win for Michels on Tuesday. I mean, Michaels spent $12 million own money. That helped a great deal. But we all talked about before Friday, was it smart to have Trump in Waukesha County? You've got your suburban voters there who aren't big fans of Trump. Was it smart to go up to Marathon County, to up there to Wausau, or to Green Bay, to Brown County? It worked out. You can't deny that he helped Michaels, and Michaels won handedly because of that combination of Trump and the money.
And now the question is, excuse me, will Michaels keep close ties to Trump heading into this fall, or will he try to distance himself? I know I kind of mentioned this earlier during his victory speech. Not only really thanked, we heard it earlier, he thanked Donald Trump for the endorsement, but then moved on. Nothing mentioned about election integrity, nothing about the falsehoods about what happened during the 2020 election that Trump consistently spews out on a social media platform. So that's something I think I'm going to be watching for. He's now taking a pivot to jobs, the economy, inflation. Your grocery prices are going up, tying, of course, Evers to Biden. And then Evers, of course, is going to start tying him to Donald Trump, even if he wants to keep him arm's length away. So that's, what do you predict here, JR? If it's smart, or is it going to help or hurt him this fall?
Does Michaels take the Glenn Youngkin approach? Remember, he's the guy who won the Virginia governor's race, got endorsed by Trump, and then did not have him come back before the November election. It enabled him to have the excitement of the Trump voter, but also appeal to those people who were feeling the real first impression of inflation, of concerns about fallout from Afghanistan, for example. All these things that were kind of starting to percolate fall of 2021. I'm watching to see how Michaels navigates the Trump factor between now and November. Does Trump announce, for example, he's running again between now and November? I had a Republican operative argue to me this week that if it's a referendum on Biden in November, Republicans win. Referendum on Trump, Democrats win. Now that's probably oversimplifying things, but the Trump factor is real, because look at Michaels between that and his abortion stance. He embraced the 1849 ban on abortion we have on the books in Wisconsin. If you are trying to win back college-educated suburban women in Waukesha County, how do you do that when you're embracing that 1849 law and Donald Trump? Probably not going to help you. However, Michaels obviously has employed a lot of union guys over the years. During his victory speech on Tuesday, talked about blue-collar workers who feel left by the Democratic Party, gets focused on social issues. He has a path to winning more of that blue-collar Trump vote, right, than maybe Clayfish would have. We'll see what holds. For Democrats, we've been operating an assumption for a long time that this is a traditional environment where the party in power in the White House is going to struggle. There are signs that maybe it's not so bad right now. Now, it is August. I'm not going to predict they're going to stay this way for a while, but right. House race in Minnesota, special election, it was a +10 Trump district in 2020. It was +4 Republican candidate on Tuesday. Okay, there's one data point. Kansas, we saw the vote in deep red Kansas to open the door to more abortion restrictions. What I'm wondering is, what are the driving issues come fall? If we're talking about gas being $5 a gallon in late October, Democrats are in a tough spot. If it's $3 a gallon, maybe it's a different story. How's the abortion issue play? That is still a great unknown, because it's one thing to have a referendum in even deep red Kansas on abortion restrictions. It's another to get a Republican who is a Republican on taxes, on foreign policy, and on the road to vote for a Democrat solely on the abortion issue. Will that happen? I don't know. But if I were a Democrat, I'd feel much better today than I did 2 months ago. Biden's numbers are still not very good. Mm-hmm. We will see a Marquette poll on Wednesday, which we'll talk about next week, I'm sure. I want to know, does Biden have any signs of life? Getting up in the mid-40s, the higher he goes in the 40s, the better it is for Evers. I believe Trump even was in the upper 40s in 18 when Walker lost by 1.1 percentage point to Evers. Does he get in that territory? If he's at 39% in October, that is really tough for Democrats.
Right, and Biden has had a lot of victories lately in Congress. The huge infrastructure deal that he's been trying to get done for a very long time. Several big bills helping veterans get some treatment. So it could be changed. And for gas, I believe, throughout the state dropped below $4 for the first time in several months. So I know I'm happy about that, JR.
and part of the problem for Biden is Democrats are unhappy with his performance. Yeah. My question is, if you're a Democrat who's not happy that Biden has done more, do you stay home in November when you have Tony Evers and Mandela Barnes on the ballot? that's going to be an interesting question. Oh, by the way, Democrats have struggled to excite Milwaukee voters, especially black voters, for a long time midterm elections. This is the first time we've had a black candidate top of the ticket in a midterm election ever in Wisconsin. Barack Obama was a turnout machine in Milwaukee County in 08 and 12. Will Mandela Barnes be able to excite those voters who are going, traditionally, what's in it for me? Why should I turn out and vote for these guys who aren't really talking to me about my issues? Does Barnes do that? If you look at Milwaukee County turnout barely eked up in 2020 versus 2016. It's still down from 2012, right? The excitement's not there. Does Barnes do that? It'll be interesting to watch.
And there'll be the Republican National Convention in town as well. So we'll see how that changes in the 2024 election, too, with the Milwaukee district area. Also, AG race, we know who's going to go up to against incumbent Attorney General Josh Kaul, and that is Eric Toney, who came out in top. Very, very close race. This is one of the latest ones that wasn't called until roughly, I want to say, 1 or 1:30, JR.
It's still up.
Yeah, of course. A lot of people still watching those numbers come in. And I think the biggest kind of surprise here is how many votes Karen Mueller was able to pull. And I think, in fact, that's what ultimately led Toney to his victory. And
paved the way. So people were talking about, Karen Mueller, her platform was she wanted to prosecute doctors who had refused to give ivermectin to COVID-19 patients who were dying. She wanted to prosecute them for homicide, I believe. She also was part of Stop the Steal crowd. That is not really a mainstream position, right? How did she get 26%? She spent $40,000 between the beginning of the year and end of July. We talked about last week. The feedback I got was that Jarko had all the things going for him financially, almost $1 million in independent expenditures. By the time that the tally came in, we talked last week that it was $600,000 some. It was a lot, but now he got to $1 million by the time Monday rolled around. Jarko did $160,000 in TV on his own. All these financial things going for Jarko. Toney, though, seems to have connected with that traditional grassroots Republican voter who wants a prosecutor as Attorney General, like that. Mueller, though, if you can't just say every Mueller vote would have gone to Jarko, but it's not hard to do the math and go, they're more likely to go for Jarko than they are to go for Toney, especially with Toney sending some text message about, Donald Trump, dumb Donald, something like that. Yeah. Not hard to see that. So she opened the door for him. Now, the challenge for Toney is, can he get his financial game together? Josh Kaul had $2 million in the bank toward the end of July. Toney has not raised anywhere near that much money in his campaign. There's a thing called the Republican Attorneys General Association. They are going to come in and play in Wisconsin in some shape, or form. They may have to play more with Eric Toney than they would have Adam Jarko because Toney hasn't raised money yet on his own. There's also the Democrat Attorneys General Association. DAGA. They're going to spend money for Josh Kaul. How is that going to play out? And can Kaul create a unique identity beyond the generic ballot in November? Again, we're seeing signs the ballot is getting a little closer, generic ballot. But if it's a headwind for Democrats, can Kaul create a unique, identity? $2 million is a lot of money. Not a lot of money. You're talking about $125 million committed in the Senate race already. The governor's race, tens of millions of dollars. That's a lot of noise for Josh Kaul to break through. But, you got to say he's got a financial edge to start the race right now.
Yep. Also, let's quickly just recap the U.S. Senate race. We've already kind of talked about the challenges ahead and what messaging Barnes is going to already be talking about. We know he's been talking about abortion already and trying to connect with, blue-collar, working-class individuals. He comes from a union background, union family. And his mom also has a personal story about abortion. He had some ads up about that. This race was no surprise after we recapped multiple times on the show how basically everyone kind of cleared the field for Mandela to be the clear front runner to go head-to-head with Ron Johnson after Lazary, Godlewski, and Tom Nelson all dropped out of the race. Stephen Alacara stayed in there, only received about 1.1 percentage points. So I guess what I'm kind of watching for now is what is the messaging Barnes goes forward, and especially how does he connect with the rural voters. Of course, I think he's pretty popular in Milwaukee County. He's from that area. He's African American, but how do you connect with the rural individuals who care more about ag and farming, et cetera?
So Barnes also has the issue of, for example, he was late paying his taxes, for example, in 2018, some issues like that. he is trying to turn that into a positive. I know what you're going through. I feel the same things you feel because I've struggled too. Relatability thing. I've been saying somewhat flippantly that this race is going to be about who do you hate the least come November, and it's because it's going to be such a negative race. You are going to see, it's politics 101. If you are an incumbent with bad numbers, and we'll see new ones for Johnson next week, your path is to tear down your opponent. So it makes sense. You go after him. The T-shirt that Barnes held up saying, abolish ICE, things like that. You're going to hear Republicans go after him as too extreme for Wisconsin, this fringe guy, et cetera, et cetera. Ron Johnson's going to be the same thing. He's a fringe guy, out of touch, out for himself, out for his millionaire friends, out for his donors. The ads we've seen already are about how this guy is benefiting the wealthy, not working for you. I think it's going to be a mostly negative campaign between now and November, and I don't think we're going to all feel really good about ourselves. It's all said and done.
Right. It's going to be some dirty politics, especially when they get on a debate stage as well. And it is one of the most, highly anticipated and hotly contested races that is being watched across the nation because of it's the future of control of the Senate. There's, of course, other seats around that are up, but that's why this one is going to be extremely crucial. Let's also talk about the nail-biter, I guess you could say, of the evening. Incumbent, Wisconsin's longest-serving Assembly Speaker, narrowly defeated his opponent Adam Steen. The difference, 260 votes. Now, Steen, of course, was mainly campaigning on decertifying the 2020 election. He got Trump's endorsement. Trump had, I would say about a 3-minute speech about Adam Steen at the rally on Friday. I think just in that district when I was in there last too, it was like a Voss-Steen, campaign sign. It seemed pretty split, but I believe it was even State GOP Chairman Paul Farrow the day before the primary said, I don't think this race is going to be close. It was pretty close. So I thought this was the most telling result of Tuesday.
I was hearing like it was 55-45, that had been a close race. It was 51-49. Look, Robin Voss had GOP lawmakers, staff, lobbyists, all doing doors in his district. Told me that they did every door in the district 3 times for voters ahead of Tuesday. There was $150,000 spent on either pro-Robin or anti-Adam independent expenditures. There was one buy for $30,000 from Wisconsin Family Action Incorporated for Adam Steen. Adam Steen said in an interview he wanted to ban contraception, right? Not abortion, contraception. He had nothing going for him other than the Trump endorsement and the energy over decertifying the election, which can happen. But think about Robin's district. It is in Racine County, which was the epicenter of the Tea Party activity in 2010. It is one of the hotbeds of the, Stop the Steal activity. The fuel was there, and the Trump endorsement just added to that, lit on fire a little bit. Plus, too, when you are a leader in the legislature, you build up scars over the years from the various things you do that are for the benefit of your caucus. They may not play well back home. You add it all up, you get a race that never should have been that close. Now, what I want to know is what's going to be the fallout from Robin surviving this? Because there are a couple people I think we're going to talk about soon who are going to have some tough days ahead of them because of what they did.
Right, that kind of leads us into our next topic between kind of the face-off between Voss and Gableman. First, let's actually take, we have some video about this as well. Basically, they've been dueling because Gableman, earlier, days before the primary election, he slammed Robin Voss. He endorsed Steen in the race. We learned that at the Trump rally when Trump said that himself. So that was kind of a big surprise because, of course, Robin Voss is paying you for the 2020 election investigation. He's given you multiple extensions to finish your work, and it was kind of like, a slap in the face. So Robin had some, I guess, strong words, you can say, after winning his primary election, and here's what he had to say about Mike Gableman.
Mike Gableman is an embarrassment to the state. So I am going to take some time to talk with my caucus next week. We actually have a caucus on Tuesday. I'm going to talk about it with all the members and see what the next step should be. Most of what's left is the lawsuits that have been filed by the left. So some of those are just simply because the left couldn't believe that there was anything wrong with the election. We can't just surrender. We have to go through those lawsuits now that they've been filed. Perhaps once we're able to shut down this investigation and move forward, we'll be able to figure out a way to save money for the taxpayers in the crazy way that Justice Gableman's been going about this.
So Voss didn't really hold back. I basically, straight up calling Gableman an embarrassment. We did interview Voss the next day, who clarified and kind of walked back those comments a little bit. He kind of clarified what he meant by the embarrassment. He didn't mean Gableman as an individual. He meant his actions. And when he further explained that to us, he's basically saying, we told him straight up, keep us in the loop of what you're doing. Let's not make this partisan. There's already, a lot of people questioning our efforts here. Let's just keep it in the, a fair lane. But Gableman immediately kind of started changing the game. He first said, there's a pathway of decertification, then writing another memo to Robin Voss saying you can't overturn the election, yet he's still out in the public saying, yes, we can do this. So it's been a lot. I guess it was a messy relationship. And we're going to find out what Robin Voss wants to do and what his caucus wants to do. I mean, are you going to end this that is now over $1.1 million on the taxpayers to pay for this? There's still a lot of lawsuits, legal battles that are going on in court. So those are going to continue. But when does Robin Voss put an end to this, I think, is the big question.
No, it wasn't just that Gableman endorsed Steen. He got a robocall, a recording of it on Sunday of last weekend, that Gableman went on this robocall endorsing Steen, saying that Robin Voss never won a real investigation of the 2020 election, and the corruption that, in Gableman's words, that he found was all in spite of Robin, not because of him. So that was an interesting choice. So caucus Tuesday, we'll see what they're going to do. The writings on the wall that Gableman's days are numbered. The question I've got from insiders all week is, what took Robin so long? If it was about going to political events, he's been doing that for months. He went to an event for a county party, GOP county party, in December, and said Kathy Bernier should resign, state senator from Chippewa Falls. Why wasn't he saying then, you're going to political events, why are you doing this? It was only after Gableman went after Robin that this became a real issue, right? So there's going to be an issue there. I've also asked people, why would Gableman do these things? Like, what's the thinking? The guesses from people are that Gableman knows this is not going to last forever. He has not been a very high-profile job since leaving the Supreme Court. Maybe he's trying to catch on with a Trump group for a job, or if Trump is elected in 2024, a Trump administration. Remember, when Gableman didn't run for election in 2018, there were rumors that he was in line for a appointment with the Trump administration. Never happened. So what's the thinking here about what his path forward is? Because he's not of retirement age yet. He needs a job after this. Who in Wisconsin would hire him after all that's going on here with this, right? The other person I know about is Jenelle Branson. So Jenelle was at the rally on Friday as well. Jenelle is the chair of the Campaigns and Elections Committee, put there by Robin Voss. She has issued a series of press releases ripping Voss on various things, also accusing him of standing in the way of election integrity. How long does that last? Because Jenelle in that position speaks not just for her, but for the caucus. You're the chair of a committee. That's putting the members in a difficult spot. So how is that going to play out? Is she going to stay in that very long? I would not expect her to have a very high-profile appointment next session, assuming Voss is still Speaker. But that's going to be interesting. Like, does the hammer come down on her as well before the session is over?
Yep. That's something we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. And kind of non-election result news, this actually fell on Tuesday, this news broke. The state is basically one step closer, taking a significant step to closing down Lincoln Hills and finding a replacement center, which is going to be, they've selected the Evers administration near Milwaukee. So this, of course, was a move that we all knew was coming, but didn't know how long it was going to take because there was some controversy around another location, which was the Falmers Cheney Center. It's currently right now House for Men, kind of a work transition program. While they're in there, a lot of people had problems. Well, why are you going to replace this? Where are they going to go? So they found an alternative site that seems to not be getting too much pushback yet. State Representative Evan Goyke and State Senator Lena Taylor have really been leading this effort. They both sent out statements, basically saying how proud they are to lead the charge on this and kind of they're in this unique position to house this facility and finally kind of close the chapter on the troubled youth prisons that have been the center of multiple investigations. Yes, things have improved, but neglect against the youth in there, they were being pepper sprayed. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Yes, things have improved, but this has been a long time coming, JR.
I think the most notable thing of the release was that Lena Taylor was on board with this site because she was very critical of the possibility that work release center could be used for the new youth prison. So the fact that she was on board is probably a good thing. The city council has taken a resolution, I think, to get support for this. Here's some challenges, though. The population at Lincoln Hills for boys right now, according to my colleague, is up to 65. The new facility will hold about 32, 34, somewhere around there. One's not enough. There's going to need to be a second one unless there is a county system. Because remember, this whole thing was supposed to be a three-legged stool, right? One of the legs was county-run facilities that weren't for the most serious offenders, but they could be housed in counties. You need more capacity for the kids who used to be up at Lincoln Hills. Copper Lake, the girls' school up in northern Wisconsin. Mendota is progressing to where most of those girls will end up. It is a mental health treatment center. Every girl, as I understand it, in the system right now has a mental health issue. They will more likely end up there. That's part of the whole process to get this thing closed down. But again, there's not enough capacity right now as we sit here and talk about the ones who are right now at Lincoln Hills to be housed somewhere else.
Right, and that could change by the time it opens. You know, there's ebbs and flows in the system, so we'll see what happens. But I would agree. I also heard the same things. It's like, yes, this is great, but what if there's 100 at the same time? Where do you put them? That's something they'll have to figure out. We're going to get to stock picks this week. They are back, and rising is Brad Pfaff, who won the 3rd Congressional District primary, which was between about 3 or 4 candidates.
Wasn't a surprise because he had the endorsement of Ron Kine, the retiring congressman from that district. He had a money advantage. The biggest surprise was probably Rebecca Cook, a businesswoman from Eau Claire, who finished second over Deb McGrath, who was a CIA agent and Army officer. Brad's challenge now is how do you convince national Democrats to invest in that race? Derek Van Orden, former Navy SEAL, had $1.7 million in the bank kind of late in July. That's a lot more than Brad had. Democrats right now are trying not to have a bloodbath with the House. Again, the environment looks better. So maybe that calculation is changing a bit, but they're going to focus on incumbents first. Yes, this is a Democratic-held seat, but it's also a rural seat where the brand has struggled. So how do you convince them to invest in that district if you have such a disparity between Van Orden and Pfaff? That could be a challenge between now and November.
And mixed this week is absentee voting. Of course, we knew it was very popular during the 2020 election, but it dropped a little bit. And there was a slew of court rulings about what you could do with your absentee ballot, too.
So, look, we are now, we're still above pre-COVID levels, but we're way off from where we were in November. And now I'm waiting for you. You get this daily report from the Elections Commission on absentee ballots from the MyVote system where clerks will update how many ballots came in. The last one I saw was from Tuesday, so there's a lag, but it was less than between 250 and 300,000. That is not nearly as many votes, a share of the overall vote turnout as we were seeing previously, especially November of the August 2020 primary versus this one. Way elevated from August of 18, but we're getting back to quote unquote normal. And that's the whole point of this. 2, we have the lawsuit in Waukesha County over curing absentee ballot envelopes where you fill out your information, your witness leaves off his or her zip code. For example, can a clerk correct that? There's a lawsuit filed. Now lawmakers are seeking to intervene in that lawsuit. They want to have a judge say no, only the voter can correct this. Because remember, the Elections Commission issued guidance in 2016 saying that clerks can take these steps to correct these issues without contacting the voter first. Wasn't a big deal in 16. Became one in 20. Now in 22, a committee said you must put that into a rule. The commission put it into a rule that gives lawmakers oversight. They suspended that rule, which means it can't be enforced. But the commission says that's great, but the guidance is still there. And they voted just earlier this month and deadlocked on rescinding the guidance. They said that means the guidance is still in effect. So this is a request for a judge to say, no, you can't do that anymore.
Right. That's been a long process. Thanks for connecting all the constant changes. Real quick, we got about 30 seconds left. I know we're a little over time. Falling this week is Scott Walker, as everyone was kind of writing the headlines. Is this the end of the Scott Walker era after Rebecca Clayfish's loss on Tuesday?
Oh, more than that. It's the end. Yeah. It's no longer the party of Scott Walker. It's the party of Donald Trump. Again, talked about Waukesha County and how the vote share has changed. If you had told me a decade ago that Scott Walker couldn't close a deal in Waukesha County, Ozaukee County, and Washington County for his protege, I'd have thought, no way. And that Paul Ryan would be booed at a pre-election rally. I thought, no way, because this was the Cheesehead Revolution. It was Scott Walker, Paul Ryan, and Reince Priebus. They were the ones leading the charge for Republicans going forward. It is now the party of Donald Trump. Reince Priebus is now an ally of Trump. He was his chief of staff for a while, got fired, but is still now close to the president. It just shows you how things have changed with this party from a decade ago. Now, I think part of it is, and something was pointed to me this week, Walker left Wisconsin in 15 run for president. And I don't know if he ever recovered from that with some people in the base, because it was during a budget, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and he was absent. And there's this kind of like, he left us thing. Mm-hmm. Add in Trump and how much a force he has become, it is a party that's changed and is no longer the party of Scott Walker.
All right, I think we did it, JR. Got all the important headlines in. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. I'm Emilee Fannon.
And I'm JR Ross.
Take care.
This program was brought to you from the Margaret Farrow Studio.